I have said, when I wrote the paper, The Crest Theory of Color Confrontation, I said the challenge to white behavioral, it's a challenge, or the challenge to white behavioral scientists, to help the white population locally and globally become comfortable with its color and its minority status in the world.
How do you do that?
Well, first of all, by talking about it. Do you see? But this is a topic that you cannot talk about. I mean, you know, you should take an A and 1,000 gold stars for having, you know, airing this kind of discussion. This is a discussion that you cannot bring out. Do you see? If you are a black person trying to talk about racism, you can lose a job. Oh, she's always talking about racism. Do you see? No, we don't want to talk about racism. We certainly don't want to analyze it, because if we analyze it, then, do you see, one can get rid of white supremacy. For example, if all of the non-white people on the planet begin to understand the dynamic of white supremacy will come to a stop. Do you see, because one of the plays, tactically, strategically, on the chessboard of white supremacy is a minority survives in the presence of a majority by dividing and conquering. You see, pit this group of black people against that group of black people. You see, which is reminiscent of the current discussion that goes something like this. The black middle class is not interested in the black underclass. Do you see? Divide and conquer. Do you see? Get the black side of the chessboard, so to speak, warring against these pieces, warring against one another, as opposed to looking at the white side of the chessboard. And I'm sure that they have plays like that in football, do you see, where you kind of cause confusion on the other team's side so that they are not able to score and make the play.
Let me just interject the Chinese student situation in this and get your reaction to that in terms of this divide and conquer thing. I think you'd mentioned this to me in a conversation, how you saw the Chinese student thing.
Well, for sure, I wasn't in Beijing.
Right.
So I don't really know, but just making an analysis from this point of view of understanding white supremacy, I said that if there were persons who classified themselves as white, and they're looking all over the globe, and they're looking, oh my God, you know, the major economic activity in the world today is occurring in Asia. Now we've got this, you know, Japanese economic colossus, and what if they were able to link up with the 1 billion Chinese people and they started trading together? What will happen to us? The yellow hordes might be getting together. Well, can we cause some confusion? Now that would just be my analysis. I don't know. Do you see? But it seems very interesting to me that a short time ago, do you see, China opened its doors, and then now you have all of this confusion, and you have the Chinese students putting up, do you see, a statue that looked to me, I mean, white styrofoam. Do you see, it wasn't a yellow styrofoam. Do you see? So I don't know. I don't know who has been talking to the Chinese students. Do you see, well, your leaders are too oppressive, and so therefore you must, you know, move against them. I mean, these are, you know, these are the kinds of moves that are made throughout history. So I just raised that question, is that what happened? Because I certainly know that that dynamic constantly goes on amongst black people, do you see, or the relationships of whites towards black, that divide and conquer. Well, do you know that Francis at Listerveld was talking about you the other day in the office? Do you see? Now that prevents Francis and Listerveld, do you see, from seeing that they have a common interest. And again, I'm not talking about hate, do you see, but I'm just talking about understanding power dynamics and power configurations and certain kinds of power configurations under certain kinds of circumstances that will occur on our planet.
Why is it that, say, with the European community can come together and nobody even introduces the idea of hate? Why is it that when this kind of discussion is being held, people have to be very careful? Say that,
well,
you know,
it's the same. Do you see? Well, if they're talking about getting out from under white supremacy oppression, they must be talking about hating us. And I say that that comes from that deeper fear they can harm us. Do you see? And they can harm us even goes to someone like Dr. Martin Luther King, who was talking about peace and nonviolence. Do you see? He was looked upon as a troublemaker and a violent man. He was subsequently killed by a white male. Do you see? And all he was talking about was love. Now I say again, if everybody loved on the planet, white would disappear. Do you see? And so therefore he has to be attacked. And so this fear that I maintain, for the most part, I do not hear white behavioral scientists or white social scientists in any way addressing what is going on in the white psyche. Do you see? So that one of the things in psychiatry, the job of the psychiatrist is making that which is subconscious, bringing it to conscious attention. Do you see? For example, a psychiatrist might try to help a man who's having difficulty getting along with his wife, do you see? And so they're arguing all the time. That the psychiatrist might say, well, you know, tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your relationship with your mother and with your father. Do you see? And let's say if the mother was punitive towards the child. Now the child represses that pain. But then when the child is now an adult and goes to relate to his wife, he can't get along with his wife. Do you see? Because of the identification. Do you see? If somebody's going to do me harm. Do you see? And so you help the person become aware of material that they have repressed. Now, I believe that, you know, if you say, well, what is the origin of the white supremacy system? I go all the way back to Africa. Thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, because, you know, even, you know, now the white anthropologists and paleontologists are now agreeing that human life began in Africa, and the first people were black. Now, I knew that the first people had to be black. Why? Because you can only, see, black can produce all of the colors. I can have a child that is an albino mutant, which would then be white. You see, blonde hair, blue eyes, white. If I produced an albino mutant, you see, I can also produce black. White can only produce white. So white could not have produced all of the colors on the planet. You see, and white being a genetic recessive trait. So only black people could have produced all the colors. And once you produce a mutation to albinism and you mix those together, then you have all the colors on the planet, which is why if somebody looked at the population in this area of the world that is called black, you will see all of the colors in the human family. You will see all of the appearances of everybody in the human family in simply the American population that is called, you know, what we call American in this area of the world. You will see somebody that is, you know, in terms of their physical appearance, representative of everybody. And that has come about as a combination of mixing, you see, the African with the European genetic types, okay?
You have said that whites are not always conscious of their racist behavior. What do you mean by this, and should it matter to black people? Should it matter to us whether this racist behavior is conscious or not?
Well, people often ask that, you know, if I jumped out of this chair and went over and slapped you, you see, there might be subconscious determinants. You see? But your issue is, wait a minute, Francis, you slapped me, you see, and I have to, you know, I can't permit that behavior to go on. Now we can, you know, after I stop you, I can help you deal with why. But your position is that it must stop, do you see? And so I, you know, as I said before, I don't know of anybody that is helping the white population on the planet, do you see, really focus on and look at and think about white supremacy behavior. But that, again, stands to reason. You see, that whole white supremacy dynamic that is now global evolved as a protective system of behavior for the purpose of white genetic survival.